Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is May the 12th, 2025. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Hopefully, you had a good Monday. Hopefully, things were very Garfield. Hopefully, you got that lasagna today. As for me, I would say it was achieved. Work was pretty good. No big complaints. It was, I don't want to say nice to be back. I feel like that's weird to say when you're talking about your job, right? But it was good to be back in the swing of things. It was good to not really be bothered by anyone, just to talk to the homies a little quick in and out. Like that's what I appreciate when I go to work. To just come in, do my job unbothered. That's what I want. That's what I got. So I like that. Then after work, we did some gym stuff. Actually, wait. Let me not get too ahead of myself. There was a Monday work treat. Shout out to the mamas yet again, for Mother's Day. I guess that's because it fell on a Sunday. They didn't do anything for Friday, but they did it on Monday. And they passed out a bunch of cupcakes. They got a little cupcake table for appreciation for all the mamas. So anyone could just take one. I took this vanilla cupcake, and it had this big ornate flower that was way too big for its britches. It was like damn near like melting as I got it to my table, but it was buzzing. It was a good little cupcake with my coffee. So yeah, I would be remiss not to mention that. But yeah, after work, went to the gym. It was maintenance day, so we really didn't. Excuse me. We didn't come in with the intention of going hard. It was filled with people, too many people. I hated it. But overall, it was a good gym session. I will say I'm having some soreness, some pain in my left wrist, and that was kind of bothering me. Luckily, it lined up, so I wasn't really lifting heavy, but it definitely turned me off of like wanting to lift too much. So that's a bit of a bummer. Hopefully, by tomorrow, I start feeling better. We'll see. I'll keep you posted. But yeah, nothing to really complain about outside of that. So work was good, gym was good. It's been good. Let's see. Last night was also good. We didn't do much post the episode. I did keep to what I said I was gonna do, and I cleaned and I shaved my head. So I'm really happy that I didn't just like pass out and do nothing. I will say, that being said, speaking of passing out, I did go to bed too early and I woke up a little too early. But luckily, with the help of a lot of caffeine, I was able to make it through. So there you go. You're all caught up on my Joneses. Let's go ahead and do our startup, and we'll get into some news. Actual news. I feel like I got a good handful of stories to get into. So, let's chop it up. Ooh wee, ooh, got me in a contemplative state. Excuse me. Ooh. From CNN, Israeli American hostage we're going to say Eden Alexander returns to Israel after Hamas release. Eden Alexander, the last known living American hostage in Gaza, was released by Hamas and reunited with his family on Monday, ending an 18-month ordeal that began with the militant group's October 7th attack. Hamas announced Sunday night it had agreed to free Alexander, 21 years old, after several days of talks with the United States, which bypassed Israel and formed part of an effort to reach a ceasefire and resume the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Now, that's very important to note that Israel was bypassed here, because essentially it shows that, like, this entire time, because like ever since the last ceasefire was done, Netanyahu has said we are only negotiating by missiles and blah blah blah. So essentially, like we're not going to take any more breaks. It is until we meet our military goals, or you guys actually give us something that we really want to hear. Then we're not stopping. This is going to be done under fire. I think that's what they said. Yeah. So the idea that this is, in theory, been going on, and it's gotten so bad that eventually, Hamas has said, we're just going to talk to the U.S. specifically. We're just going to talk to the manager here. And they were able to get a deal hashed out. This also lines up, though, and this is kind of I'm just throwing this in as well. Trump is going on this Middle Eastern tour, right? And part of it, he's going to be hitting a lot of places in the region. So bringing up that Qatar jumbo jet situation, that lines up with it because he's going to be visiting, and they wanted to line up the announcement for that. In terms of more details on that, it's a jumbo jet. It's a gift not directly to the president, but to Trump's administration, to the presidency, and it's supposed to go to the presidential library after it's done. There's, supposed to be some hurdles against this. I know that the Democrats are really mad about it, and they're like, blah, 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 blah. I got to be honest with you. Take away my liberal credentials. I don't really give a shit. I don't care about the goddamn jumbo jet, whether he gets it or he doesn't get it. I don't give a damn. He's been bitching about wanting a new Air Force One. This is a super cool, jet that I guess would accommodate our Big Mac Emperor. I don't fucking know, whatever. I don't really care if he gets it or not. But back to the matter at hand, I think that this was just something that lined up. Trump wanted to get a win, or at least the administration wanted to get a win here. And they said, all right, yeah, we're going to talk to them directly if you guys aren't going to make any deal. If you guys are just going to do your thing, which we know what that thing is, an ethnic cleansing. It's like, hey, if you're going to defend your right to defend yourself or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You do that, but we want something here. So we're going to make it happen. And I'm sure Israel's not happy about that. I'm sure Benjamin Netanyahu's not happy about that. But essentially, you don't really have an option here if, once again, the manager's speaking here. You got the fucking, key head honcho here saying, hey, no, this is going to happen. We're at least going to get this guy out. And we're going to give them some kind of aid. Now, I don't know exactly how much, what is the amount? How long is it going to last for? Who's administering it? It just seems that Israel is not, at least as of, to my knowledge, as of right now. But anyway, let me continue. I kind of went off the beaten path there. Alexander, wearing a black Adidas t-shirt and baseball cap, was photographed during his handover to the Red Cross shortly before his convoy left Han Yunis and headed towards Israel. He later arrived at an Israeli military base for a medical assessment and a long-awaited reunion with his family. I'm going to skip ahead here a bit. In Tel Aviv, Alexander was shown holding U.S. and Israeli flags as he embraced members of his family. The reunion comes as U.S. President Donald Trump embarks on a Middle East tour, with stops planned in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. The Trump administration had circumvented Israel to seal a deal with Hamas to free Alexander, with Trump framing it as a step to put an end to this very brutal war and return all living hostages and remains to their loved ones. Now, something I was a bit confused about here, because they say the last living American hostages returned. That is not all of the remaining living hostages. So, worth noting, following Alexander's release, 58 hostages are still being held in Gaza, with at least 20 believed to be alive. Among the deceased hostages are 4 American citizens, including husband and wife Gadi Haggai and Judy Weinstein Haggai, as well as soldiers Itay Chen, or I'm going to say Itay Shen, I'm not sure, and Omer Nutra. So there are still people who are alive. It's just around 20 at this point. Obviously, the number has gotten smaller and smaller. But, I mean, I don't know in terms of, are there going to be any more negotiations or anything like that? That all remains to be seen. And we don't know who's going to be at the helm of those negotiations. Is it going to be some kind of U.S. envoy, or is Israel going to actually be more compliant or pliable post this? I don't know. I doubt that, the latter. But, I mean, we'll see. I hope. But yeah, because I mean, I've heard rumors here and there, but those things come and go like vapor because the ones that stick because they get more and more traction, and then you actually hear some like a statement from Israel. If you don't, then it's just like, okay, it's just something that Hamas is maybe poised, and it just doesn't. It's just it falls on deaf ears. Israel's not going to be like okay with it, and they just want to keep doing what they're doing currently, which is starving Gaza, which is doing missile strikes and occupying this area and trying to take up more of it. So yeah, I wanted to start with that story. We're going to move. We're going to talk about a little bit of the economy, a little bit of the China-U.S. trade war. I mentioned that also yesterday, and we got some news on that today from Reuters. Also, shout out to Yahoo Finance because Reuters fucking paywalled me. Global stocks rally after U.S.-China pause tariff war, but uncertainty remains. Global stock markets surged on Monday after the U.S. and China agreed to slash steep tariffs for at least 90 days, tapping the brakes on a trade war between the world's two biggest economies that had fears of a global recession. But the temporary pause did little to address the underlying schisms that led to the dispute, including the U.S. trade deficit with China and U.S. President Donald Trump's demand for more action from Beijing to combat the U.S. fentanyl crisis. While investors cheered the move, businesses were seeking more clarity. Under the temporary truce, the U.S. will cut extra tariffs it imposed on Chinese imports last month from 145% to 30% for the next 3 months, the two sides said, while Chinese duties on U.S. imports will fall to 10% from 125%. In addition to tariff reductions, China agreed to lift export countermeasures issued after April 2nd, including restrictions on rare earth metals and magnets used widely in high-tech manufacturing, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer said in an interview with Fox News. Financial markets cheered the reprieve in a conflict that had brought nearly 600 billion, in two-way trade to a standstill, disrupting supply chains and triggering layoffs. Stock market is doing better there. So this was big news. I really wanted to wait until I saw like what was the numbers, what's been agreed to, how concrete is it, and we got a bit of that. And I mean, this is good. It turns like, I was trying to think of how to like describe this in my way as best as I could. Like maybe like it goes from a stab to like a vital artery to like a really bad bloody nose and a punch to the kidney. Like you're still not feeling good here. And this is for either country. No one's coming out of here clean. I know for China, they said, hey, we are not yielding. We are not backing down. But their economy is not in good shape. For America, our economy is also not in good shape, but we wanted to paint this picture, especially from the Trump administration, that we are settling scores, we are righting wrongs economically, and we are fixing the numbers here now for us, and that's what we want out of this. So essentially, they didn't want to come to the table. We didn't want to come to the table. But somehow, some way, both sides wind up coming to the table. I will say it was also a fun little coinky-dink. And you know how I like to just mention spin or like whatever the angle is. Like even the liberal New York Times came out with, a story coincidentally about how bad the economy is in China. To remind you, it's like, yeah, we did say some good things before in previous episodes, but this is how bad it is right now, just so you know. And it's like, yeah, dude, like, I mean, everybody knows it's been tough all over. Like, yes, China's a superpower. Yes, they are struggling for, X and Y, Z reasons. So are fucking we here. But once again, China's not the one who started this fucking trade war. The U.S. did. We did. You know what I mean? Trump, said, hey, let's fucking do this shit. Let's kick this off. Liberation Day. Bow. And here he is walking this shit back. I mean, I'm happy about it as a person who wants to see cheap goods. I'm sure there are businesses and corporations that are at least happy about this. But you have to say with an asterisk to some extent because this is only for 90 days. So we don't know if this is part of that squeeze, that release that Trump's trying to do here to quote unquote make deals and make things work and happen. I mean, inevitably, China's going to tout this as a W. And America's going to tout this as a W. Trump's going to tout this as a W, right? And I mean, I think that it sucks for everybody because there's still a higher percentages. This is still not helping anything. It's just less dramatic, and it's like, hey, we can actually get back to doing some business here. Maybe the kids will get some toys for Christmas. So there you go. So I mean, overall, this is good, but I mean, we're still gonna have to keep an eye on it. We're still gonna have to see how things move in terms of like stock market and yada 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 blah blah blah. And I mean, we just never know what Trump's gonna do. Also, I think I didn't have this covered. I'm just gonna pull this out from the air. Trump uh, signed an executive order to slash pharmaceutical prices. So it's like, yeah, the thing that like Biden cut, and I think actually Biden cut Trump's thing that he tried to do. So I guess it's been a bit of back and forth. But now Trump is also, back on it saying, hey, I'm trying to make things better for, pharmacy shit. So there you go. Pulling that out there. But anyway, let's zigzag. Let's go to Turkey. Once again, another story from Reuters that I farmed via Yahoo News. Thank you, Yahoo News. Not sponsored. Kurdish PKK ends 40-year Turkey insurgency, bringing hope of regional stability. The Kurdish Workers' Party, PKK, militant group, which has been locked in bloody conflict with Turkey for more than 4 decades, has decided to disband and end its armed struggle, group members and Turkish leaders said on Monday. Since the PKK launched its insurgency in 1984, originally with the aim of creating an independent Kurdish state, the conflict has killed more than 40,000 people, exerted a huge economic burden, and fueled social tensions. The PKK's decision at a Congress last week could boost NATO member Turkey's political and economic stability and encourage moves to ease tensions in neighboring Iraq and Syria, where Kurdish forces are allied with U.S. forces. Speaking after a cabinet meeting in Ankara, President Tayyip Erdogan said the decision was an important step and labeled the move an important threshold towards Ankara's goal of a terrorism-free country. Skipping ahead a bit here. The group's dramatic announcement comes as Erdogan seeks to capitalize on what he sees as vulnerabilities of affiliated Kurdish forces in Syria after the fall of former President Bashar al-Assad to Turkey-backed rebels in December. It also comes amid the group's increasingly weakened position in northern Iraq, where it is based, after having been pushed out of Turkey and well beyond its borders. While Ankara welcomed the decision to resolve, it does not guarantee peace. Rather, it paves the way for agreeing a tricky legal framework to securely disarming the PKK, which is designated a terrorist group by Turkey and its Western allies. The PKK 12th Congress decided to dissolve the PKK's organizational structure and end the armed struggle. Thurrott News Agency reported it saying as it closed a Congress. A PKK official confirmed the decision and said all military operations would cease immediately, adding weapon handovers were contingent on Ankara's response and approach to Kurdish rights and the fate of PKK fighters and leaders. Kurds made up some 20% of Turkey's 86 million population. The PKK held the Congress in response to a February call to disband from its jailed leader Abdullah Öcalan, who has been imprisoned on an island south of Istanbul since 1999. It said on Monday that he would manage the process. Now, this was the story that started us on this line talking about the PKK. It's part of the reason why I wanted to kind of get more into the details and just read it out, because y'all know I'm not super well versed in Turkey and all the things that have been happening here. A lot of historical context to kind of chew through. So I figured, hey, let's just stick to the article, kind of let it do the talking, or at least do most of the talking. However, it was not clear whether Ankara agreed to Öcalan's continued role, which polls suggest could be unpopular among Turks, nor were details available on how the disarmament and breakup of the PKK would happen in practice. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said the PKK decision was an historic importance and could bring lasting peace and stability for all the peoples of the region. It is also unclear how the process would affect the Kurdish YPG militia in Syria, if at all. The YPG leads a U.S. allied force against Islamic State there and is regarded by Turkey as a PKK affiliate. YPG has previously said Öcalan's call did not apply to it, contradicting Ankara's view. It did not immediately comment on the PKK's announcement. So that might be something that might jam it up here because they're saying, hey, we want PKK and all its members and all its affiliates to surrender and give up their arms, comply with this. And if that doesn't work, then is that going to hold, right? Is this agreement going to work out, right? So that's a relevant thing to mention. It also just kind of goes to show, too, just how, spaghetti, octopus, all the tendrils, where this all goes, it's crazy that America's so involved in this, and it's why, and in this capacity, but then it's not crazy, obviously, if you just look and see that it's America has no problem funding proxies to do whatever the fuck it wants done, as long as they don't have to technically get their hands dirty, and they just have to throw some money at it, give them some guns, and they don't care, they don't mind, and then they do this shit in any kind of place, in any kind of time, they don't matter. So I always like seeing that. I always love knowing that that's where my tax dollars are going. Let's see. This was something that obviously I really wanted to stop and talk about here. The disbanding will give Erdogan a chance to boost development in Turkey's mainly Kurdish southeast, where the insurgency has impaired the regional economy for decades. Actually, this is not where I wanted to make my big note, but we'll get there. In its statement, the PKK said it has completed its historic mission, which over the years shifted to seeking greater Kurdish rights and limited autonomy in southeast Turkey, rather than an independent state. The PKK struggle has broken the policy of denial and annihilation of our people and brought the Kurdish issue to a point of solving it through democratic politics. It said on the Firat News website, which is close to the group, and showed images of PKK members at Congress and fighter fatigues. Let's see, we're scrolling ahead here. This is the part I wanted to hit. The pro-Kurdish DEM party, Turkey's third largest, played a key. This isn't it. Gosh, I'm fucking up. Sorry. Played a key role in facilitating Öcalan's peace call. Tayyip Temel, a deputy party leader, told Reuters the PKK decision was significant for Kurdish people and the Middle East as a whole. It will also necessitate a major shift in the official state mentality of Turkey, he said. I literally have the thing I wanted highlighted, so I'm going to wipe this clown makeup off my face and get to that. Analysts have said Erdogan, who has made repeated efforts in the past to end the conflict, is focused on the domestic political dividends that peace could bring as he looks to extend his 2-decade rule beyond 2028 when his term expires. So essentially, I just call this going infinite. He's just trying to go on and on and on and on and on. And he was like, what do I have to do to make that happen? Well, I kind of have to make one of the impossible things happen here, which is make the PKK go away. And I feel like he was the big divining hand here, either, not directly, but, by a lot of indirect ways and means. He's also, imprisoned his main, political rival and is looking to just secure a path to make this happen in a quote unquote democracy, right? So I hate the means and the reasons for this, disbandment, whatever, it's not like I'm here, cheering on for terrorism or I want it to go on, but you understand why, that's why I wanted to read part of it, is to kind of get a glimpse on why these people are fighting, what are they fighting for? And, for it to be given up essentially just so, Erdogan can just continue his fucking power run. I just hope that it's going to at least achieve the peace and it's going to achieve the goals, that were set out by the PKK, at least, in its final phases or renditions, whatever, what have you here. Because you want to see peace for people, right? That's the whole fucking point of this. It's the whole point of ending any kind of conflict. So, obviously we will be coming back to the story as it continues, as it grows, develops. But this felt important, and I wanted to try to do my best to kind of read it and just say my 2 cents. And obviously I did not say that shit very well, but we move. Anyway, I'm going to take a water break, and then we will get to our next story. Hydration station. All right. From Law and Crime. Affixed chains, padlocks, and cinder blocks. Man admits to helping on-duty cop dump body of victim in river after alleged murder in patrol car, feds say. A Tennessee man who helped an on-duty Memphis cop dump the body of a victim allegedly murdered in a patrol car has pleaded guilty. Joshua M. Rogers, 33, faces up to 70 months or 5 years and 10 months behind bars after he entered a guilty plea on Thursday, the U.S. Department of Justice said in a press release. According to feds, Memphis police officer Patrick J. Ferguson on January 5th, 2021, kidnapped 30-year-old Robert Lee Howard Jr. at his home at gunpoint and forced him into his patrol car, where he shot him in the head. Prosecutors say Ferguson then enlisted the help of Rogers to dispose of the body. They transfer the body to Rogers' car, where they affixed chains, padlocks, and cinder blocks to the corpse and drove to the Wolf River in Memphis, where they dumped the body. The defendant in this case obstructed law enforcement from investigating and seeking justice on behalf of the victim, his family, and friends. Assistant Attorney General Harmet K. Dillon of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division said in a statement, "I am proud of the great work by the Department of Justice and their prosecution of this case." Sentencing is set for August 6. Ferguson, 34, is facing state charges of murder, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, official misconduct, and official oppression. In May of 2024, a federal grand jury issued an 8-count indictment with charges including federal civil rights, kidnapping, and weapons offenses. Both cases remain ongoing. The federal case is slated for a November 3rd trial, while Ferguson has a court hearing next month in the state case. Howard's girlfriend reported him missing the day after the killing. Authorities recovered Howard's body on January 10th in 2021. Cops arrested Ferguson and Rogers a few days later. A state grand jury indicted them in May of 2021. The federal grand jury also indicted Rogers for conspiring to cover up the fatal shooting and destroying evidence. Now, they don't have a motive for why Ferguson did all this. I'm very curious. I think that would definitely be something I'd love to kind of come back and tell the audience, because why would you go through this whole thing? Like, this just feels like a Pulp Fiction scene, what I'm hearing, or like some Wire shit, I don't, and there's no reason behind it, at least to our knowledge, at least to my knowledge, right? So I'm very curious on that for sure. And we might just come back to just the general bones of it in terms of like the sentencing or any kind of updates from the Ferguson part of the cases, whatever. But yeah, no one's surprised seeing cops doing some foul shit. But goddamn, they brought out the chains and the cinder blocks and shit. What the fuck? Anyway, we have one more story I wanted to cover, and we are getting back to a trend for the past year or so, which is recalls, a lot of recalls. So yeah, let's go ahead and take our last break, and we will close it out. Ooh. From ABC News. Voluntary recall issued for eye drops sold nationwide. Several over-the-counter eye products used to treat dry and irritated eyes have been voluntarily recalled following an audit by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA. AvCare, that's Care with a K, a pharmaceutical distributor, issued a voluntary recall notice on its website, noting that the products are being recalled due to manufacturing deviations found during the FDA audit. According to the recall notice, the exact health dangers for consumers using the recalled products are unknown, but the company said, excuse me, deviations may lead to products of unacceptable quality, and it is not possible to rule out patient risks resulting from use of these products. ABC News has reached out to AvCare for further information. Now, that to me is crazy that they don't exactly tell you what the fuck is wrong with these things. I think that's fucked up. They have the details here. 13,872 cases of artificial tears ophthalmic solution. They have a code for it. We're not reading that. And then 1,610 cases of carboxymethylcellulose sodium ophthalmic gel, 1%. And they have the national drug code there. So yeah, I mean, kind of crazy that they're being a bit vague on the details there. But obviously, if you have those, throw them out, or take them back to where you got them and get you maybe a little refund or exchange if that's possible. It's always what I like to suggest, even though obviously I'm not an expert or anything. Y'all know that. But yeah, just be mindful, be aware, when you're dropping those eyes, you don't want to have a problem. Whatever it is, whatever the deviation is. But yeah, that is going to be it for today. I'm sure there's more news out there, but hopefully we'll try to get to it, throughout the week, right? We'll try to catch it. But yeah, that's where I'll leave it. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Isaiah News. Become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube. That's a free action that helps out a lot. Follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever platform you're listening on. Leaving a like, leaving a cool comment, sharing is caring. Those are all helpful ways to help out the algorithm, help me out, boost. But really, you just listening, you just tuning in, just hanging out, even if it is just for like a minute, just to like hear what's up at the top, what the life looking like, things like that. That is very helpful. That's very cool. And I don't just mean in like an algorithmic sense. I don't just mean in like the whole rat race of whatever it is, being a content creator. I mean, it's just cool. Like, it's just cool to me. I'll say this as many times as I can, that it is so cool to me that I get to do this every day and that there is at least someone on the other end of this. It's not just me talking to my goddamn self. And I think that's pretty fucking cool. So thanks so much for being a friend. And I'm fucking up my ending. That's crazy. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love you. Bye-bye. Mwah.